welcome back. And now I'm going to talk about What the Hell Is This, which is Sadako Vs Kayako, or Ringu vs Ju-on. This is the film that brings them together, the Ju-on series and the Ringu series. Well after both series had a run at the box office, they had their American remakes, they had their big success. This is when the sequels aren't working anymore, so let's chuck them together with two different big horror franchises together. So you have different versions of the Versus type of movie. Now you have like the ones I would enjoy, like the Godzilla vs Kong or Kong vs Godzilla, depending on what film it is, because there's the old one and the new one. I like both of them better than this. I would definitely place this well above AVP series or Freddy vs Jason. And I would say it's a bit on par with Frankenstein vs. the Wolfman, that kind of thing of, it's enjoyably silly. It's you shouldn't take it seriously compared to what came before. But if you're feeling a bit of fun, here it is. Don't think about it too much. It does lots of things well, but don't think too much about it because it gets kind of stupid at the end. But it's still enjoyable. It's still... The people who made it understood the series they were making and tried to be respectful. Now, I would say straight away that I'm more of a fan of Ju-on than I'm of Ringu. Ringu is a series that got more success in America and in Japan. Ju-on was a more slow builder. Ju-on had a narrative structure went back and forth in time, and some people thought it was a bit bitty, which is about the set pieces rather than the build and story, which the Ring series had more of a story and a build to the horror. But to me, the actual conventional side of that story made it less scary because I could tell where it was going always, so I never had that irrational fear that in Ju-on you always got, because you're never quite sure where it's going, because it's always, even though you've the general idea was people are going to die because of the curse, because it's going back and forth in time and it's less traditional structure, it made the situation scarier because it was less predictable. So for me, Ju-on was always the creepier. Also, the kid and the woman crawling on the stairs to me is creepier than a girl coming from a well and just having long hair. It just, like, to me, the Ju-on monsters were creepy. And the Ringu one, less so. Plus, my favourite Ringu film is Ringu Zero, which you get of her backstory. And I kind of see her as more sympathetic rather than even though the monsters in Ju-on were victims of violent crime and now they're coming back for revenge on anyone who dares enter their house. They're so genuinely scary and creepy compared to Ringu, which I don't think really is. So it starts out now. There's two different legends for two different villains. So for Ringu, the setup is you get a tape, you watch the tape of this art house thing, and suddenly you get a phone call telling you're going to die in 2 days. And the Ju-on is, if you enter the house, you're cursed. And even if you leave the house, they're still going to get you. So both of them have there's a sense of finality if you see the tape. Unless you make the tape. The one thing with tape is if you record the tape and give it to someone else and they get cursed and die, you escape the curse. So there is a get out clause in Ringu, which some could say it adds to the tension, some could say it's an easy cop-out. In Ju-on, you're kind of fucked. You're just dead if you go in the house. It's just the way it is. Again, that makes it creepier. It's like, how are you going to get it? And they managed to make it so that it's not just like Final Destination where you're just waiting for the elaborate death. It's much more, how creepy can you make your degradation and insanity? Like, how far insane will you go before you die? And they give them a lot more range. At least for me. But even at a certain point, the director of the Grudge series was like, okay, I've done enough of this. there's no more to be pulled out of this series. It's done everything. And he moved on, and no one from the no one from the original films is involved in this film. So it does have that quality of it's made by someone who's seen other films and is a fan of other films, but didn't originate them. So you do get a sense of it's a bit more playful with the rules and with the setup, but it's not like Alien vs Predator where the alien seems to be born 10 seconds after someone gets infected. It's much more like everything's up to a little bit, but it's still respectful to the canon, really. Even though I would never convince myself that this is part of either canon, because it's somehow convenient that they're suddenly together in the same universe. But the basic plot is, because the videotapes have gone now, the videotape of Ringu has been forgotten. It's just an urban myth now. But then, a woman with the videotape, this old woman who died, she still used videotapes rather than DVDs or streaming. The tape is in her house. The tape goes to this shop, and the shop is, selling on second hand. They sell the video machine from this dead woman to these two young students because the one of the students, she wants her parents' wedding recorded from a videotape to digital so that she can give it to her parents so they can still have the footage of her wedding. So they don't have a video player, so they go and buy one cheap from the second-hand shop. Inside the video player is the video. And suddenly it's like one of them watches it, another one doesn't. And the cuss begins. And then you find out that the girl checking the video player saw the tape too, and she suddenly dies horribly. So the cuss is back on, and it allows them to figure out what the cuss is. They're taking urban myths, lectures from a professor, even though it bores the hell out of them. So they go to him and ask him, and he's so excited about it because he's just into this. So once he finds out they're cussed, when the girl is cussed, he knows there's an exorcist. Yep, there's an exorcist in Japan who gets lots of work. So he takes him to her, which leads to the first outrageously ridiculous but wonderful sequence in the film, where they try and they force her to drink lots of water and try and pull the demon out of her, because it's like an Asian version of exorcism. And they try to pull the demon out, but the demon's too strong, and the demon absolutely murders everybody in the location, saying, "You're not getting her, basically, I'm getting this one." And slowly, at this point, they pulled these two experts of the supernatural into the situation, which is this guy in his 20s and this blind girl who's basically a young girl. Both of them have connection to the supernatural. Both of them do it for money because they need it to make a living. The young girl is much more sympathetic towards what's going on. The guy acts as if he's just doing it for the money, even though you can tell there's more to him than that. But basically, that's when they get the idea of the cursed house. Like, take the cursed house and make the both like demons fight each other and destroy each other rather than taking the person who's been cursed. That's the idea anyway. So that's the basic plot you've got. You've also this other girl who lives next door to the cursed house. And so through her seeing the cursed house and seeing some boys disappear in the cursed house, you get an idea of how dangerous the cursed house is. And that's the best sequence in the film, in the build-up, the cursed house, because when the boys go into the cursed house, it's pretty brutal what happens to them. And then when she ends up going to the cursed house and her parents go and try to take her out of it, some pretty brutal things happen to them too. And it's just wonderful. Just the Ju-on I always find wonderful, because it's like, you always get a sense when they're doing Ju-on films that the people making it are really enjoying themselves, messing around with. There's one location which should be easily boring. They keep on finding fun things to do with it. And it makes the Ringu stuff feel a bit staid. And the Ringu stuff, to me, picks up a lot more in the second half when it gets a bit crazier, and it seems to be infected much more by the what the hell attitude of the of the Ju-on series, which is much more let's invent stuff and then we'll add it to the lore somewhere down the line. It's like we'll explain it, but this is fun. Let's do this. But it's still within the realms of what it is. It's not like throwing crazy stuff for no reason. But there's a much more of a sense of it's less staid in its conventions. The Ringu series seems to have very simple conventions. And they had, because it had been done so much, by this point had to add an exorcist to it to add something new. Because this series had been played out quite a bit. So the film just gets crazier and crazier and gets more and more enjoyable for me just the more it goes on. The finale is wonderfully insane. I mean, the demons do fight, but very briefly. But it's what goes running around and getting them there with these two supernatural creatures, supernatural investigators, plus this girl who bought the machine in the first place, and her friend was cursed, and now she's cursed as well, and dealing with what happens with her. All this stuff is just really enjoyable. It's one of those films that you can pick holes in it compared to the first Ringu and Ju-on films. You can tear it to bits if you want. If you're going to go with a pencil and make notes. I just enjoyed it. I mean, it just is a big silly film. The end is authentically silly in lots of ways, but it's still very enjoyable. The fact that they go crazy at the end just makes me enjoy it even more. It just because I'm not taking it seriously as a film. I'm just not, because it's a Versus film. It's like, as soon as you go to a Versus for any series, I'm wanting crazy. I don't want respectable. I want crazy. And this film is crazy. But also it goes for some smaller scales as well, and then it builds up, and does go a bit lunatic in certain sequences. It just is a lot of fun. So it's one of those films, if you want to go and see a fun, silly film, you'll have a good time. If you want to take it seriously, watch the old films. But it is well made. The acting's quite decent. Everyone seems to be enjoying themselves in the film. And you know, it's fairly harmless. I mean, there are far worse Versus films out there. This is an enjoyable one. I mean, it does not have a memorable plot. I mean, essentially, I'm going to remember the crazy stuff of The Exorcist and the ending more than I will remember the plot. It's just one of those kind of films. But it is very, very enjoyable. So I hope this gets to go watch it. You can catch it on Amazon or iTunes. It is available to buy. And it's not that expensive. So if you want to see it, catch it in HD. So I would say go give it a shot if you like either of these series. But if you don't like it, I'm not giving you your money back. Okay? Just in case you watch and hate it. Tough. You made your choice. Right, so that's me for now for this one. Bye.